Welcome to the Meeple Syrup Show, where designers discuss design. We're on episode 63, the BGG.con recap. For anyone who watched our last show, I have to apologize I was not there, but thankfully my co-hosts Sen and Tyler were here taking care of business, and I'm just thankful for the two of them and the great work they do. But I'm thankful also to be back with everyone. So I gotta ask, Tyler, what have you been playing lately?
Lately, I have been designing my new mustache for Movember.
Ooh, nice.
Everyone remember to do that because I can't grow a mustache to save my life. So this is my new one.
There it is.
Lately,
there it is.
I got Clask in the mail last week, which Sen and I have to play at some point. I got some games from Mosey Games in Taiwan. A couple from another friend of ours, Odd Hackwelder, and I got a whole bunch of games from CSE games, including Fantasy Baseball.
Yeah, I hear that's an alright game.
Woohoo! It has its moments.
Yeah,
it has its moments. I feel like I'm surrounded by cards in that game.
Well, you kind of are.
I'm constantly been playing that game lately.
Yeah.
Very excited because today is our first day on Kickstarter. So
yeah, and how are you guys doing?
Yeah, very excited. We just got our 74th backer. So we're almost at the 1/3 mark from funding. So my hope or my goal was if we could be somewhere between 75 and 100 backers and about a third of the way, that would be fantastic. So hopefully during the show we might see that.
What is the goal? Oh, wow, that's not a high level at all.
No, CSE Games was real practical about what they needed. So they set the goal at 7,500. Thanks, Sen, for showing that. And the goal here is really more about people helping out to make the game really a better quality experience. So we're offering a lot of stretch goals so that people can influence how they want the game to be made. And also, one of the kind of fun stretch or reward amounts that you can do is you can actually do the full collection where you can buy not only fantasy baseball, but you can get fantasy football and fantasy hockey as a set. And if things go really well, then one of the kind of extreme stretch goals is actually they'll throw in a fourth game for free. So.
Very
fantasy
cool.
rugby or fantasy lacrosse?
It'll be fantasy football European style. So soccer.
Soccer. Very nice.
In time for World Cup.
Fantasy football.
Fantasy football.
Nice. And will JR be working on you with all of those?
Yeah, so JR and I are still tweaking up some of the rules for the different versions. We just need to make sure baseball was really singing, but a lot of the times we found different rules that we enjoyed, but we didn't think were as baseball, and were a little better suited for some of the other sports. So we've built those into them, and then some of the rules you can actually apply retroactively from some of the other sports. So if you like them, a certain fantasy football rule, like for instance in fantasy football, you can only have one quarterback, and certain positions matter. Positions don't matter in baseball, but if you'd like to retroactively apply some of those rules, you can to mix up your experience as well.
Right. Okay, so
I look forward to fantasy hockey because I'm not so much a baseball fan, but I love hockey, so.
Yeah, and the fun thing with hockey is we actually have the NHL license, so we'll actually be using the NHL logos and maybe even monsterize some of the logos and some of the mascots and have some fun with some of the player names.
So right here, this is the pledge level 4, the full collection for 50, right?
Yeah, that's it. $50, 3 games. You really can't beat that, and they'll mail out at 3 different times. That to me is kind of a no-brainer pledge level, but
yeah, that's awesome. That's a really nice pledge level to have. Awesome. Well, I guess everybody doesn't really want to see my screen, so I'm going to turn that off. Hello.
Well, what games have you been playing, Sen?
Today, Scott and Ellie and I played a bunch of games. A couple games. We got to play Josh and Daniel's Bomb Squad Academy. So the week before, we played the actual Bomb Squad game by Dan Keltner and David Short. And then this week, we played Bomb Squad Academy, which is a card game that you've probably played, Daryl. being a very, very GAC-tested game by Daniel and Josh
I
Capel.
think I might have played that game the most of GAC.
Yeah, we played it quite a bit.
Yeah,
And
I played that game a lot.
it still plays really fast, really well. Some really great decision-making moments in the midst of the game. They've cleaned up the tools a lot, which was wonderful because they were kind of messy in the original version, and so now it just plays smoothly and very nicely. And the artwork is Josh art, so it's great. And the rules are very comprehensive. They're actually it's a really small book, but they're really long. There's like 30 pages of rules. It seems like a lot, but in the end, it's very simple to play. And then we just picked out one of my old favorites, Tash Kalar, and we played that. We didn't get to finish it because I think Dragon's Den was shooting at Fanshawe today or something weird, and so they had to clear us out of Four Wall Hall. So Scott won by default. I'm going to call it an asterisk on Scott's win there, because I was coming back. But that's one of my favorite kind of weird spatial rotation placement games that really challenges the brain to work, and it's one of those games that I think you either like or dislike really quite a bit. So I know some people who really like it, and then I know some people who dislike it quite a bit. But I don't think anybody who dislikes it disrespects it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's like they don't like it because it's not their kind of game, or they know they're not good at that spatial recognition skill. But they understand that there's a really strong game beneath it. I mean, it's Vladja, so what are you gonna do? It's gonna be good, no matter if you like it or not. The game is a solid game at the level. You just might not like it personally. Then other than that, not too much. Been still working on a lot of stuff. I've seen that Eves has been using Tabletopia. Have you been using Tabletopia or seen it?
I've been strictly on tabletop right now, and that's because
Tabletop Simulator.
Yeah, Tabletop Simulator on Steam. And the reason I have been for now, and I will make the shift. I'm not against the shift unless Tabletop somehow convinces me not to make the shift. But for now, there is a cost associated, and so, for instance, Eves was not on Tabletop Simulator, and he pledged towards their Kickstarter, which was a fantastic offer. But what I'm waiting for, which they've already promised to do, is people that are content creators, so inventors that put up their games. If you put up your games on there, then you can earn credit towards your membership. They're not offering that yet, so you have to only straight up pledge or pay, and I'm not going to double pay for two different services whenever I paid for Tabletop Simulator. So
yeah, I mean, although I only paid like $10 for Tabletop Simulator,
but still. But like you're covered for life with Tabletop Simulator. So the idea is I'm going to use that until they kind of have everything straightened out and they can offer free membership. Once they offer free membership, then I'll load a few of my games that I'm working on, use that as another testing location. One of the things I do like is that your users don't necessarily have to have the program.
Because this is browser-based, right? Tabletopia is browser-based, so you can just shoot them a URL and
exactly. So that's a little more friendly for some of my testers, but for now, the people that I'm working with all have Tabletop Simulator, so it's working for me. But I do see the advantages that Tabletopia will bring. Also, a major reason people are drawing to Tabletopia is because they're offering a lot of games that are already complete. I'm not one for playing digitalized versions of board games, so that's not really a service that I personally would take advantage of.
Yeah, me either. For me, it'd be strictly because if the physics are better, if the manipulation of the pieces is better on Tabletopia, which I believe it is. I haven't really tried it myself yet. I have to get around.
Slightly. I've watched demos. The physicality is a little improved. What I've heard is actually far more improved is actually the creation process is a little more user-friendly. So instead of kind of knowing a little more coding stuff, it's all graphic interface, very simplistic to build the game, which for me is a big plus.
Oh, hey, somebody was asking why there's no fantasy basketball.
Yeah, that could come in time as well. We did discuss that as even another stretch goal that we haven't announced. But that is one that we are open to designing, but we just kind of had to start somewhere. The reason we started with baseball was because both JR and myself are huge fans of baseball.
Really? I wouldn't
We
know
love
that.
all sports, but those are our first loves.
Can we do
But
fantasy wrestling? I think Tony and I would be up for that. Fantasy wrestling.
my favorite suggestion was Final Fantasy Sports Ball. So that it
sounds
would
like
be
something Eric would make.
Yeah, I thought it was a really funny suggestion that someone said like we spoof all sports together. So and that would be like the final one in the series. So who knows?
Get really ridiculous and go to like that trampoline basketball they had.
Oh, slam ball.
Slam ball, basketball.
Yeah. Ooh, fantasy ultimate frisbee. Seth Jaffe would play.
Dodgeball. We could get into
if you can
ultimate
dodge
dodgeball.
a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
Yep. Yeah, all that good stuff could get integrated. So I mean, we're not against that, and if the demand is there, then we can keep making this wonderful line. But for now, we're starting with baseball because of our first love. We're doing football because we know that there's a lot of people that love fantasy football, and then NHL because we already have the NHL rights. So that's kind of where we wanted to start. We thought the soccer would be actually really cool coming up to the World Cup because maybe we could do some monster versions for the countries.
Yeah,
so, you know, like a monster beaver for Canada.
Or Yetis.
Yetis. Like, there's some cool stuff we could do there. So
cool, and Rob's doing the art, of course.
For all those Toronto fans out there, if they are going to play fantasy hockey, just because you win one game doesn't mean you're going to win it all.
Yeah, if you win game one, don't start a parade.
Damn. And is Rob doing the art for all of the fantasy?
No, actually,
so far?
really exciting. We have Adam McIver on board for the football.
Nice.
And we're still figuring out details when it comes to hockey and the others. Both Rob and Adam have said they'd be very interested, so we're just really excited that they're both involved with the project, and we'll kind of figure out the next sports as it comes to it. And even a few other artists have expressed interest, so it's kind of a good thing that a bunch of really talented people are all kind of coming forward saying, I'd love to be involved in the project.
Yeah, so if anybody out there in YouTube land thinks that they can outdo MacGyver or Lundy at doing the art for fantasy series.
Another contender.
Another contender. Bearded Meeple doing the art.
Oh, yeah. There's a submission entry right there.
Oh my God, Tyler. All right, so we know where you've been playing games and what you've been playing, so let's just actually get our guests in.
Yeah, let's get our guests in here, and then I can be talking about my stuff while they're also talking.
For sure. So, for those of you who didn't know who are the guests tonight, we got Mr. Hova. What's up?
You in the house.
Gil's in the house, and Miss Straw herself, Stephanie Straw, coming in all the way from Arkansas.
For anyone who doesn't recognize Stephanie,
she's incognito.
A beautiful event that actually I would like Stephanie to explain why her hair is dyed, because it's for an amazing cause.
Why it's dyed plaid.
Yeah, why is your hair plaid?
No,
that'd be amazing. If you could dye your hair plaid, that'd be awesome.
You can. You actually can do. They have hair tattoos. Okay, so for Extra Life for Kids is a charity. It actually runs year long, but they have a specific marathon. It's a 24-hour gaming marathon. Video games, RPGs, board games, everything. So I went to Mox Boarding House in Seattle, and we did the marathon. And if I got to a certain goal, I would let, which was 2,500, I would let, or 2,000. I would let the highest donor pick the color of my hair, which the highest donor actually ended up being someone anonymous. That was $540. The next two were $500 each, and they both picked these colors, silver, purple, and blue, between the two of them. So I decided to do them all. And Brittany Bow dyed my hair, actually at the con. You can go on my Twitter at Insert Straw here, and you can see the bleach blonde that I had for about 12 hours. But after that,
I can honestly say I'm a much bigger fan of this than the bleach blonde. So
yeah, so the bleach blonde.
Did you have more fun though when you were blonde?
I did. So my blonde personality is Nadine. She has that name. Yeah, Nadine. I don't know if we need to name the blue hair me, but the bleach blonde me was Nadine. But there are photos on my Twitter of me with bleach blonde hair.
Do things that Stephanie Straw wouldn't do?
She drank pink champagne.
Wow. Classy.
Very classy.
Yeah, so really good cause. Ended up raising so far $3,500, but you can still donate if you would like. bit.ly.com/mox, MOX.
And if we raise enough money, we will shave her head.
$10,000. That's a legit goal. $10,000. I will.
10,000. Zing zing.
I will shave my head. I will for $10,000. I will fly.
And let Tyler do it.
I will. Oh, I'll do that. I will go to Tyler and let Tyler shave my head.
Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah.
The whole Meeple syrup crew would be there.
Yes.
You have a month. You have a month to do that.
1 month, $10,000 people, Meeple syrup crew, shaving, Spencer Strauss hair.
Yeah. So this is.
Are you coming up for the Meeple syrup camp thing stuff?
It's like, when is it?
January 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. So soon after the holidays.
Yeah.
You guys are.
It is
killing
actually
me.
a holiday.
Well,
That's true.
the beauty
That's
is
true.
you could come up, celebrate New Year's with friends. I know you have tons of friends up this way. You could celebrate it in like Toronto, hang out with like Nicole. I'm sure she would love that.
She would hate that.
And then and then come out to Meeple syrup camp.
Yeah, I want to. I really want to. I really
Yeah.
do.
Make it happen.
Hey, Mr. Hova. Mr. Hova, what's up with you?
Yeah.
Well, I'm back from BGG.con, which I think we're going to be talking a bit about.
Nope, not at all.
And, no,
Nope.
not at all, not at all.
No,
And
love the trick.
I've got most of my voice back.
Yeah, you're sounding much better, Gil.
Yeah, it was.
Still sounding rough though, bro.
Yeah, but I'm getting there.
Yeah, Sunday night, Gil and I played a little fantasy baseball.
Yeah,
and
because
we
Gil's
just-
also a big baseball fan.
Yes,
Yeah.
I am.
And so we were hanging out, but man, that voice was sounding a little scratchy. So why don't we jump into why your voice was scratchy? Gil, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you were up to at BGG.con?
At BGG.con, I was a vendor. It was my 9th year at the convention, but my first year as a vendor. So that was a totally new perspective for me, and it was fantastic. I had an incredible time. I came with Formal Ferret Games, which is my own company, and we showed off there it goes, Bad Medicine. And the game was received very, very well. Also showed the networks, although that game was not for sale. For pre-sale, yes, but not actually for sale. And that was a lot of my BGG.con, was being in one of the 2 vendor rooms and slinging games.
Cool. So there's only 2 vendor rooms there, so it's not as vendor focused.
There used to be 1 vendor room.
Oh, so it's more vendor focused than it used to be.
Yes, yes, there was 1 vendor room, and they outgrew it. Last year, they put they put some of the vendors in the main hall, and they'd done that in the past, but they tried to do it a little more last year, and they decided to shuffle the rooms about, and one of the rooms got renovated, so they put the vendors there. And we can talk a little bit more about like exactly how that worked out, because it was kind of interesting.
Question for you, Stephanie. Just an overall feel of what your experience was like with the con.
Just that's it? Just how did I feel overall?
Yeah, just if like compared to other conventions you've gone to, like you feel it, because like they were just saying like less vendor, because I went to Gen Con for the first time this year, and it is just overwhelming product, where everything I saw on Twitter and video feed, BGG.con is more gaming and hanging out in an atmosphere.
Yeah, so BGG.con, if I had to just go to one con a year, right now, of the ones that I've been to, it would be BGG.con. Now, there's a lot that I haven't been to, and the reason for that is it takes the best parts of all of the conventions that I have gone to that I really like. For example, at Origins, it feels really small and intimate, and I feel like you get to play a lot of games, and I feel like BGG.con has that. It does have vendor purchases and actually exclusives and things that people haven't seen yet because it's after Essen, so it has a little bit of that at Gen Con, like these new games are out, like the hotness, so it has that too. It also has, and this is kind of recent in the past few years, actually really mostly this year, Unpub has been a big part of BGG.con, and prototypes and unpublished games. They had the Protozone last year. They had it the year before last year.
We've had it for a while. I used to run it.
So but now I feel like it's a bigger part now.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
you more often will see people playing prototype games in the main hall and just everywhere, and talking about games, and publishers talking to each other, and they're speed dating. So it has also the unpublished games too. And also it's close for me, so that's a benefit specifically for me. Is it's a drive. I don't have to fly there, so it costs less for me. I really like the flea market. That's not something that's at a lot of cons. There's an auction. And for people that are flying in, it's right at, it wasn't always, but it's right at the airport. So
Nice.
the transportation is super easy and
Which is a pro and a con. I'm going to come back to that one.
Yeah. It's a good thing and a bad thing.
And then the food, okay, well, you're Canadian, so maybe you have, like, some crazy thing against, like, U.S. airports. I don't know.
No, we just like outdoors and light and air and fresh
Yeah,
air.
sorry, I don't like being surrounded by
You could
planes.
go outside. We went outside. But yeah, and like
outside. I'll get there. Don't worry.
the food is good. There's places to go. There's places to stay. The restaurant hotel or the hotel restaurant is really good.
Yeah, I'm shooting myself in the foot that I didn't go down with Daryl, because I probably could have arranged something. But next year, Daryl.
The only thing it's missing is more cosplay.
And more Canadians. No, I'm kidding.
More Canadians.
You could use more Canadians.
More Canadians cosplaying.
More everyone. And you know what's crazy? So that's the other thing, too, is a lot of people fly in, like Zen from Japan, and that's crazy. So there's a lot of people that are flying in from countries when they could just, easily go to Essen, and they're coming here to the U.S. for BGG.con.
True. I hung out with a German.
Not Nils. He's also German.
A German. Nils is like an American German.
Well, now he is.
Yeah,
He
but
was a Canadian German.
Henning was there also. Henning's
Henning
German.
was there.
Yeah, Henning's German.
Henning was there. He was in the Stronghold booth. I worked with him. So.
Yeah. Cool. So, Mr. Hova, what do you think is the best thing that BGG.con specifically offers to designers? I know Steph went over a lot of it, but specifics. Get into some of the specifics.
Oh, so specifically a designer. I mean, yeah, that the Unpub room is becoming so much more of a resource, and I know that a lot of designers kept on going upstairs, to get their games tested, and they had a constant supply of play tests, and I think that was fantastic. If I wasn't at my booth all the time, I would have spent a little more time up there. As it was, I was only able to make it up there, I think, late Saturday night, and it still looked fantastic. Another thing I think that it shows for them is there are a lot of publishers there, and a lot of publishers willing to accept pitches. And my two games that were published by other publishers, BGG.con was a big part in getting them signed. Just that exposure and the ability to meet publishers, I think, is a great, great resource for designers. And even if you're not going there to pitch, just for the networking aspect and meeting people, Gen Con is an amazing con for that too, but at Gen Con, you only get to meet people for like 30 seconds and then you're on your way. And BGG.con, since it's so much smaller, you actually get some time to sit down and hang out and socialize with these people that you don't get at a larger con.
Absolutely. No, that's some great stuff. Some things that definitely make BGG stand out. There is one particular event that I had heard the legend of coming up to the event, and then really saw firsthand, which was quite the unique experience. And I know Sen would be very jealous of this one, actually. Not the spin tops, but there was a Scotch crawl.
Oh, that too.
And I was curious, Stephanie, if you could tell us a little bit about the Scotch crawl, if you can remember any of it.
Yeah, no, here's the deal. I love Scotch.
Scotch.
Down into my belly. Yes, Scotch. I love Scotch a lot.
Me too.
So I had heard about this. I followed Scotch Test Dummies separately from BGG.con, and then I heard from someone else that, they do a Scotch crawl at BGG.con. I'm like, wait, Scotch Test Dummies play board games? That's crazy. But so Bart Chief from Scotch Test Dummies also
awesome.
has
Awesome dude.
part of the Dice Tower, and he has like
The
a different
Chief.
show. Yeah, he has a different show too, and I hadn't heard about that because the Dice Tower has like a million shows and
Yeah,
affiliates.
I don't know why I didn't mention it to him, but the Chief made a Walled City video. I should have gave him a shout out.
Yeah. He loves board games, and he comes and he does the Scotch Crawl. This is something he's apparently done for a couple of years, and I missed it last year. Didn't get to go to it. Heard about it like the day after, so I go, okay, well I'm going if they do it this year. So I've been literally bugging them on Twitter via DMs, like, do the Scotch Crawl when you're doing it. Can I do it? Like, there's probably a restraining order. Like, my lawyer will have to get involved, but I really wanted to do it. So he was like, yeah, we're definitely going to do it. For legal rules, there's some legalities with it. They have to do it in people's rooms, which is why it's a Scotch Crawl and not just like a room that you go in and have a Scotch tasting.
Yep.
So they have people volunteer their rooms, and some of them cook. Like, this is the thing. Like, they cook like waffles, chili. There was like cheese and crackers. It was amazing.
It was all there, folks.
Yeah. So I got to taste so many new scotches. A lot of them I had already tasted, but I got to taste so many new scotches, and it was amazing. I met a bunch of people. There were like 7 rooms. Some people maybe don't realize that scotch is a sippin'.
Yeah, I think a few people may have gulped.
So
people are showing up with glasses like this. Oh.
Yeah, maybe the Route 44 Scotch tasting was not the way to go.
I think it may have gave the wrong message when everyone was handed big gulp glasses.
Yeah, it's just wrong.
So
I
had a little glass, and I was just tasting.
No, I'm just teasing. There was a majority of people that were drinking to enjoy and taste. I will say this, and I don't know how to do this better, but as a first timer, I found this incredibly creepy. But the goal was that you just kind of found the rooms that were hosting amongst random other guests. So the door was a creak, then you hoped that was a room that was participating. So you do a little bit of you kind of do a knock, and there might be something like, "Get out of here!" And then you'd start like walking away, and then you're like, "Oh wait, no, that's us."
Right. Those are So the way that they did it was the people that volunteered the bottles of scotch in the rooms. We met like beforehand, and we were given the room numbers, and we knew, and we tweeted and texted and sent those out. So we knew specifically what rooms we could go to. So I think that we probably could have done
make it into a puzzle hunt.
Probably could have done a better job of because people weren't even sure of the time. So
people weren't sure of the time or the locations.
It's not like an official
I definitely
event.
found myself in random rooms. Got to know some new people.
You're waking up people in their beds. Where's your scotch? Where's your scotch?
Yeah.
Bring out the good stuff.
Yeah, so it was on floor 12. So, but it was a lot of fun, and I like that I did something for a couple of hours that wasn't board game related, but with a bunch of people that enjoyed board games. I think that's cool to like mix hobbies and interests, kind of like you were talking about with baseball and sports and board games, is mixing those two together. I enjoy Lagavulin and Time Stories. So.
There you go. Well, I enjoy Lagavulin at least that much. Very cool. So if there's anybody out there who likes jujitsu and like choking people and board games at the same time, I'm your Huckleberry. Daryl, let's see. Tyler's next to Mr. Hova.
Yes, Mr. Hova, I have a question for you regarding something you brought up, the unpublished area. Have you gone to, whether it's BGG.con or something, and you see something in the unpublished, and you're like, oh, hey, that looks really cool. You go to an event next year, and the game's published, and you're like, wow, that is not the game that I saw.
I don't think it's happened to me, you know? I mean, I think my favorite moment of that was I like when I get to help out a game and, you know, give some piece of suggestion, and then I see the game get published and thrive because of it. I remember a few years ago a couple of designers bringing their first game that got signed recently, but I made one small suggestion and it made it into the game. That game was Ophir by Charles Wright and Jason Kingsley, and it's a really fantastic light pick up and deliver game, but it works, and it works very, very smoothly. They got amazing art for it. So I love seeing these games that start off as, these small gems, and I haven't seen them like totally get derailed into these what happened here things. They usually turn out okay.
Now, I know I've asked Sen this before, and I'll pose the question to you. As a designer, do you enjoy playing games, or do you go something like, oh, I got to see the unpublished area, I love the prototype aspect, or...
I'll be honest, for BGG.con, my favorite area is the hot games area, because I get a lot of opportunities to play the Essen games that I didn't get to play otherwise. And this was weird because this was the first year I actually did go to Essen, but as you may know, Essen is not really a playing convention. You don't get to play a lot of games at Essen. Essen's a buying convention. Yeah, exactly. He plays Verboten. You get a big duffel bag and you stuff as many games as you can in there, and then you spend your nights. Okay, you get to play a little bit in the evening, but pretty much the big game is trying to figure out how to stuff everything into your bag so you can fit everything, and then you play it all when you get home.
Daryl has that down to an art.
Yeah,
He's a mule. Daryl's a mule.
It's pretty amazing. I finally got to do a little bit of that this year. So I actually got to play games like, for example, the Ponzi Scheme and Domini, I think it's called. Though Domus was not in the hot games room, which is too bad because it's a great game.
Yeah, that's a nice under the radar one.
Yeah, so I got to play a few games beforehand, but this year I got to play Tricerion, and that was phenomenal. That was a really, really good game, right in line with Terra Mystica. So while I love to play prototypes, for me one of the big appeals of BGG.con is that hot games area, and to get to play there is always and I got to play Mule the board game also, which was fun. Speaking of muling, yes, Daryl, you'd be really good at it. No, this is Mule, of course, being based off the legendary 80s Commodore 64 game Mule.
Yeah.
And it was cool, but a few years ago, Planet Steam came out, and Planet Steam took a lot of liberties, but it is Mule at its core, and I liked Meeple the board game, but it was really faithful to the source material to a fault, to the point that there are some real random events that come in. And while I thought they mitigated the randomness was not a problem for me. They had a real metagaming way of doing that, like the way they did the events is the player in first place draws a lucky card and decides who to hand the lucky card to. They can't take it themselves. So presumably they'd hand it to the player in last place, but metagaming, and then whoever they handed it to gets to draw the unlucky card and gets to decide who to hand it to, and there was a decision there. Do you hand it to the player who just handed you a good card? And again, metagaming. It's made for metagaming, which some groups are going to love. They're going to love that sort of drama, but a lot of groups, and frankly I think groups that would enjoy all the other mechanisms, would not enjoy the metagaming. They have a variant there where you just calculate who's got the most and least money, and that's who draws the lucky and unlucky cards. And honestly, if I played it again, I would probably play with that. I am not a metagaming gamer. I don't like metagaming. So there you go. Planet Steam has no metagaming in the box, and it doesn't really have. Everything is really nice and juicy in the game, and I think that's why personally I would lean more towards there. But I would like to play the Mule board game again, with the advanced variant and trying a few things, because I think it's got some cool things working for it.
Cool. So, Steph, here, just before we move on to asking more design questions, this is a suggestion from the YouTube people. Not the actual official YouTube people, but our YouTube watchers.
It's from YouTube.
They're suggesting that this is who you should cosplay as.
Yeah.
Oriana from BattleCon. Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Why not?
All right.
I got it.
Dang. I need to make
I
a
was
blue.
gonna do that one.
I need to do a blue-haired.
Stephanie Straw, you don't have to put on the red dress.
It's red pants, but it's a
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Red pants and now a red hat.
That translates. Yeah. Maybe I'll do Oriana with like a flowing, but I'll do pants with like a overskirt.
Red pants for sure.
Yeah, red pants for sure. Excuse me. So, Steph, tell us a about your views of how Unpub has added to BGG.con in terms of getting designs out there to the public, and maybe even pushing towards publication, Kickstarter, or to getting signed with another publisher. How's it going?
So for one, I feel like Gen Con is kind of like a frenzy, right? So you can talk to those publishers, but kind of the main thing that a lot of them, especially the bigger ones, are trying to do is they're trying to sell their games. They're trying to sell their games that are hot. They're trying to sell the ones that they just announced. They're trying to, they're releasing like exclusive stuff. So Gen Con is really busy for vendors, which are our publishers, right? So I feel like cons like Origins and BGG have sort of been this now, let's find for publishers, like let's find these designers that are already here at this event. Why try and like receive a prototype in the mail and then play it, like learn how to play it and then play it and see if it's any good? Why not just spend 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes talking to all of these designers that are here and getting a feel for these games? And I feel like more and more publishers are doing that, and more designers are bringing their prototypes to these cons, and not even necessarily to play with publishers, but just to get play tested, because here you have a bevy of people that love games, right? And that's the perfect starting audience for your game, because you want to sort of polish it with that crowd, and then I think you can move on to, depending on how deep you want to appeal. Do you want to appeal to casual gamers?
Yeah.
Then you can move on beyond BGG to blind playtesting and stuff like that.
Right.
So I feel like it's almost an essential step in game design is a convention-like experience at BGG.
Yeah, I think you're right, Steph. That and Tony Miller on the YouTube feed is saying Origins, Unpub, BGG.con are officially becoming his conventions of choice.
Exactly.
And for me as well, while I got a lot of work done at Gen Con and got it was effective, I personally like being able to actually sit down with people for more than the 5 minutes that they have. And you know this stuff because you were on sales actually at Gen Con, and sales is just, that's the focus. That's the unfortunate nature of the beast. When there's 60, 70,000 people clamoring for sales, you gotta feed the beast. And so I think that Origins and BGCon might be that nice sort of meeting of both worlds, where you can have a lot of play, you can get a lot of play tests done, and you can actually sit down with the decision-making people of the companies, because they're going to be there, and not focusing on sales so much. The other thing that I saw a lot on my Twitter feed and on my Facebook feed is a lot of people are saying, after BGGCon, they had a lot.
Con-crud?
Yeah, I thought this was going to turn into a con-crud question, but Sen just died.
Yeah, I like Robot Sen better, I think.
Yeah, I think my con-crud made it over the wires and made it all the way up to Sen.
Yeah, maybe. But anyways, a lot of people on my feed were having their posts about, got like hundreds of good play, well, maybe not hundreds, but lots of good play tests done at BGG.con, and am now confident that we can go forward to Kickstarter in 2016 or something like that, which I didn't see after Gen Con. I didn't see that in my feed after Origins, but definitely see it in my feed after BGG.con. Is there a reason for that, Steph? What do you think?
Say that again.
Well,
think about that.
Say what?
I'm not sure exactly. Say what one more time.
What? Just that people in my feed are posting more about how many successful play tests they had at BGG.con, and then they're able to move forward with their game now. But I don't see that after Gen Con, and I don't see that after Origins. Why after BGG.con?
I think people do that after Origins, but I think that amongst the people that I think that our community is interesting on Twitter, the people that we're involved in, and I think that it's a little isolated. So I don't know that that's necessarily representative, like the whole. I think it's kind of a piece of it. Mm-hmm. So I think that, because for me, the convention that feel like I know the most people at is BGG.con. So I feel like a product of that is I'm going to see more people go. I'm bringing something back from this. I'm moving on from this. Also, Unpub just has a bigger presence at BGG cons. I definitely think it's bigger than Gen Con, but I don't know. I think Origins is kind of creeping on up there too. However, Origins is in Ohio, and that's not really centrally located, so I don't know if as many people have access to Origins as people kind of do in Dallas, because I feel like
Yeah,
Dallas
I mean, that might
is
be it too. I was just wondering if
centrally
more
located.
people get actually play tested by non-friends and non-other designers at
Right.
BGG than they do at the other conventions because it's more organized.
That could be the way that the main hall is set up, because you're just enclosed in this big main hall, and Origins is kind of like super spread out, and you feel like if you walk up to a table and it's people you don't know, you feel like you're interrupting someone. And like, I have social anxiety, so I'm not just gonna walk up to someone.
That's
and
very strange to hear.
I am. I know. I really do. I'm a very outgoing person, but I actually am shy and have
I
social
get that.
anxiety.
I get that feeling.
I really do. I come home from conventions and I have to decompress, and I don't want to see or talk to anyone for a really long time. But no, I think the way that the hall is set up in BGG, the way that you just have to like snake around, and their tables are so close and it's enclosed, it just seems more intimate. Origins is so open, and again, I would not walk up to a table at Origins, but I would absolutely walk up to a table at BGG.con and be like, hey, what are you playing?
Right. So it might be a little bit of the culture at that particular con that leads to more
Right.
gameplays there. Interesting.
Right.
Okay. Tyler?
One thing you had mentioned, Sen, with Twitter feeds, social media has hugely, vastly changed the face of conventions, because all these people that can never have before seen them or know what's going on, they're like, oh my goodness, I'm missing this, and this game was there, and this happened. So it's opened up and connected the gaming community. I know myself, people were like, oh, this game was here, and I would just tweet the designer, say, hey, I'm a reviewer. Any chance? Yep, I'll send it to you right after the show type thing. So conventions were so exclusive before, but now you can go to it without actually attending and see everything that's there. But speaking of attending and interacting with stuff, Daryl, speed dating, what's happening with that?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm gonna jump on what you were just last saying as well, just real quick. I think also we mentioned like Gen Con, for example. There's so many games releasing, and that is kind of hogging the microphone. That I think one of the reasons we're seeing on social media things like games being play tested and having a little bit of a voice of being getting some noise at BGG.con is because those are some of the stars of the show. It really is, some of my highlights were prototypes, and getting to even interact with, friends like an Eric Lang, who, gets to play his prototype with a handful of people right there on the floor in the big room, and that multiple people can play that. That's not going to happen at Gen Con, because not only would he get swarmed, and that would just, kind of end it, but also more people are talking about, XCOM than talking about his prototype at like a Gen Con. So I think that's a couple of reasons why there's a bit of a different vibe and a different feel and a different kind of media outlet coming out. Concerning speed dating, I got to wear a unique hat this event, which was really a learning and fun experience. Thankfully, over the last few years, I've built up a good relationship with Eggert Spiel. A lot of people have never even heard of Eggert Spiel, but they're a publisher out of Germany who is actually the credit holders or the publisher that found games like The Village, games like Camel Up, games like right now Mombasa, Porta Nigra, My Village, some really huge hits. And what happens is they always partner. They always find, for instance, in North America, an American publisher to take care of the North American market. Their mindset is that they want to make high-quality games and focus their time and energy on developing games, and then they want to find great partners and have them take care of their customers in their own regions. So, for instance, Stronghold had Porta Nigra, very successful. I saw Stephanie teaching people it, and a lot of people showing high interest in that game. And so for Eggertspiel, their goal is, well, instead of sending a whole team of people to learn that, and teach that, why not just encourage, for instance, Stronghold to do a great job, and that they already have quality people in place, so then their people can teach that game. So I got to wear the hat of a publisher and go through the speed dating as Eggertspiel, looking for games that would have international rights, and then maybe even trickle back to North America through one of their partners. And that was
did some of the designers look at you weird because they know you as a designer?
Well, it was real fun. Like, I'd sit down and they go, "Oh no, you got to find your own table, Daryl." And I'm like, "Nope, I am Eggertspiel." And then they're like, "Oh, okay." And then Phil was with me as well, but a lot of it he can't pick up because people, especially in a speed dating scenario, are speaking so fast. And especially anyone who knows or has friends from Europe, one of the biggest tips is speak slowly. And that just does not work in that environment because you're trying to get out as much as you can in like your 6 minutes. So really, I was kind of the listener, and Philip was just kind of observing. And then at the end, when we'd walk, I would translate what he just experienced. It was funny. So we, took the sell sheets from everyone, and then afterwards we had to sit down and I talked him through each of the games. And then we could follow up with the ones that we were interested in. And then I also got to be a headhunter and look throughout the whole time. I kind of spread out the word amongst designers I knew and said, if you have any games that you think would be a good fit for their catalog of games, let me know, and let's set up a scheduled appointment. Sometimes I would view it and then show them to Philip, or Philip would sit in with me, and we'd listen to some pitches, and in the end, I managed to find a few games that they took and a few games that they encouraged and said, like, we'd like to see them at a later stage, and a few games that they said, aren't right for us, but, keep working on them, and here's some other publishers to check out. So
cool. Excellent. So that sounds like a good time had by all.
Yeah, it was really interesting, and I mean, I guess I want to ask Gil a question kind of on this front. And I know Formal Ferret is kind of wearing these multiple hats of, you're trying to sell, and you're also trying to play test and develop. And how do you manage to juggle all that at a con like this when you want to, get those demos and you want to get, those sales, and you need to get so much sales to pay for yourself there? What's the magic formula for Formal Ferret?
I haven't really found it yet. It's my first year, and I'm still experimenting. I do know that when the vendor hall is open, it's entirely 100% the booth. Although I was really fortunate in that I was able to build a good staff for my booth. My booth mates, Shayla Rucker and Michael Lohr and Todd Derscheid and Al Fisher, all were fantastic. So we were 5 people, but we would have 2 to 3 people in the booth at any time, and that was really a luxury. It meant that if I had to walk out from the booth at any time, I knew that it was in good hands. So that, I think, is part of the formula, is don't do it alone. Get help and have people help you. And then the other part is I decided for this con, once the whistle blew and 6 o'clock happened, I would revert to being a regular BGG.con attendee, and I usually, would run upstairs. I was lucky enough to have a fridge this con, and I grabbed a microwave meal out of the freezer. I nuked it. That way I could have dinner in like 5 or 10 minutes, and then I would dash on over to the hot games area, and I would try a new game. Or I would try to meet up with someone that I hadn't seen, because at this point, BGG.con for me is a social con as much as it's a gaming con, and a lot of my enjoyment of BGG.con is just walking around and saying hi to people. It doesn't even have to be playing games at this point, although, of course, the games are a big highlight. So I think having those delineations is important. Saying for this con at 6 o'clock, I play games instead of sell games. And of course, that line's blurred. There was one night where I tried to get demos of Bad Medicine and the networks going, just to make sure that people were playing them in the big room, and give them more visibility. But thankfully, a lot of people did that job for me with Bad Medicine. It kept getting checked out of the library, which was awesome. So yeah, it really depends on the convention. It depends on feel. Depends on how I'm feeling at the time. But yeah, I don't think there's one single formula. Especially convention to convention, it's going to change.
Excellent, excellent. Stephanie. I am asking you a question about Legacy. 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 What can you shed some light on some Legacy play?
So this is something that we were talking about before the show. This is sort of a popular thing that's it's come about. I first of all, I really enjoy legacy games. I don't enjoy the idea of like having to buy more stuff to necessarily complete a game. But with the legacy, you don't necessarily have to do that because you can just they're supposed to be played as individual games. And you're supposed to not have to purchase additional stuff to feel like you have a complete story. I really like legacy games. This is about to get like super deep right now. So the one thing that I think of when people ask you like, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to accomplish? What do you want to do with the world? Is I want to be remembered. Is the thing that I say.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds kind of selfish, but I don't mean that like I want to be famous.
I think everybody wants that in a way.
You want to be known.
No, and not even that. I
You want
to know
the Stephanie Straw wing of the hospital.
No, not at all. I want to have an effect on people. I want to know that like the way the people have an effect on me,
That
and I think that would
people's
be
lives.
that would be great if I could have a positive effect, bring some value to people.
You realize I'm going to come on the show with a blue wig next week, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
So I will have affected. I mean, this is
really
not.
affected them.
I'm in the majority now. I was unique and special with brunette hair, and now I am not. So, but no. So a legacy game kind of makes me feel like, no matter what, like I am going to have an effect on something. Like the choices and the decisions that I make will have an effect on this game and future games, and that is to me the coolest idea ever. Whether or not I win this game, I could lose this particular game, but the things that I do, like if I name that island or my character finds a tribe and then gives them some fruit, and now that tribe is somehow thriving, whereas that tribe would have totally gone away if I hadn't have been there and did something with them. So I really like the idea that I can affect a game that much. And then Legacy is just super hot right now, and Rob D is like turning them out, turning them out.
So we've got Rob making a couple games now. Obviously, Pandemic Legacy, huge on the hotness, huge on the BGG list, and then one coming out from Artana, which is Origins. That one, Tony, who's watching the show right now, led a couple adventurers or whatever people through that adventure, and that's another one that Rob is making in the ecosystem, he calls it.
Yeah, I played both.
Yeah, did you get to play them, Gil?
I didn't. I didn't get to play Origins Legacy. I am playing Pandemic Legacy right now.
So what are your thoughts on the Legacy system in general? And how might you, as a designer, maybe even utilize some of those things, or would you tread in that hallowed ground, do you think, or is it Mr. Davio's kind of real estate right now? What do you think?
Oh, I don't think anything is anyone's real estate, and I think that's what makes the hobby so strong, I think, honestly, when we got, for example, the deck building mechanism, we got a slew of deck building games, and, while some of them were annoyingly similar to Dominion, we had a bunch that, like Eminent Domain and A Few Acres of Snow, that really started handling their own ground. And likewise, when we got the worker placement mechanism with Kalis, then we got Agricola, and we got Stone Age, and all that. So, the same thing with the legacy system. We're going to see people start to incorporate it and use it in ways that are different than how Rob Davio originally used it, and I think that's wonderful. It's one of the things that makes the hobby so strong. What I really like, there's a few things I love about the legacy system. I think it's a brilliant system, and I think there's a few things I like about it. One is how you get to introduce an overarching storyline, and you add one extra layer of game to each individual game, and you can really build a narrative that way. And normally with a board game, you can't really get a real emotional attachment because all you're really concerned about is the score. When players are concerned about the score, about the outcome of this contest, like quantitative output, any sort of emotional attachment sort of goes out the window. And a legacy system reintroduces that, same way as when you have a video game that's like a first-person shooter, you've got the series of puzzles, but then you've got these interstitial cutscenes. And the legacy system is the closest thing that board gaming has to it. And I think it's a fantastic way of approaching that. It's also a nice way of introducing a bunch of small variants and things that would have been small expansions into the main trunk of the game. I thought that was a really nice way of folding all that stuff in and making that the canonical game. And then finally, just this anarchic way of, okay, you get to destroy the game, you get to consume the game as the game is happening. The only thing, there weren't many games that did that before. Freedom and Frieza had an old game called Falsche Fubsiger, where you got to destroy the money, you got paper money that got to crumple up in your hands. And I never really saw anything like that up until the legacy system encouraged you to like destroy cards, and that's a great feeling. You know, the downside, of course, is you only get X number of plays out of the game. You know, like for Pandemic Legacy, between like 12 and 24. But honestly, for most gamers, I think that's going to be enough, and you get such a meaningful experience out of it. I think gamers are willing to do that.
That very thorough response, Gil. I really appreciate that. Always appreciate your wisdom on this topic. I'm going to actually keep the conversation going in a little bit because I know Stephanie is passionate about storytelling and narrative. And I especially was curious what you think of now how the ecosystem or Origins is kind of putting a twist when it comes to Legacy. The way that it works, from my understanding, is that actually the Legacy mechanic is from game to game. So it's not as much in play, but it's actually going to affect from shifting from one game to the next game. It's going to inform and influence your story as you go into it and have a little bit of narrative now approaching that next game in the ecosystem. How do you feel about that as a gamer?
Yeah, so Origins specifically, but the ecosystem, Rob Davio has plans for, so you each have sort of a character sheet. And everything you're doing, of course it affects the game. Of course anything that you're doing in a game is going to affect the game, but the specific legacy portions are for the future games. So in Origins, you are all part of this tribe, and you're kind of like a budding tribe, and the tribe isn't really very established, and whatever you do in that game, you as a person can have an effect on whether or not that tribe succeeds or fails. So I wouldn't call it semi-cooperative. It is competitive, but there is an element of the things that we do will have permanent effect, and that permanent effect could be negative in that this tribe could fail. So if that's not the kind of story that you want to continue, you as gamers, as you're playing this game, and then you're going to play the next game, then you might want to help mitigate that, and you will have to work together to do that. So it's really an interesting thing to think about that, yeah, I can win this game, or I can lose this game, or whatever, but the thing is, what do we want our story to be? Like, what do we want our empire to be? Someone will eventually have an empire and a kingdom and etc., but what do we want this experience to be? Do we want to have a bunch of tribes that fail, and so we only have one kind of clear winner, and then we play the last game, and we've got, sort of a desolate world where only the strongest have survived and a bunch of the weaker have died down? So it's kind of interesting in that you have to make those decisions, not just on the gameplay, not just on do I want to win, not just on victory points, but what's going to be fun for me? What's going to be a good story? And I really like that.
I thought you would. Yeah, so, Artana, the publisher with Echo, and both Dirk and Rob are co-designing the Echo series games, and they're going to be doing some really neat stuff with that. So keep an eye on that. As Tony is mentioning in our YouTube feed, they're really going to focus on a few different things. So, for instance, Stone Age is resource management, Bronze Age will be area control and wargaming and etc. So you're actually going to see the legacy mechanic applied to different game mechanics, which I think is kind of what Gil was even mentioning about kind of this evolution of combinations of mechanics, and hopefully we'll see it from a variety of people so that we get to see their different interpretations.
Yeah, but I think we're going to try to get Rob on the show once Seafall gets out, right, Daryl?
Yeah, so originally when we booked Rob. He said he would come on the show once Seafall was ready to drop. This was a while ago. We booked him in April, and he did not anticipate that Origins would be out before Seafall, because Seafall is actually done as well. I saw it at the Plaid Hat party. Was playing that amongst some other games. Point of the hat, yeah. No, Stephanie's busy chatting with people on the YouTube, and which is great.
Sorry, what about the hat?
Oh, I was just saying, point of the hat, because I was at the Plaid Hat party, and that's where I saw Seafall being played amongst other games. But yeah, so let's just keep in mind that this legacy mechanic in this conversation is just we've just started this topic.
This conversation is legacy.
Yes. Yeah,
we're affecting future conversations.
We're going to have a future conversation about this, and this conversation is going to affect that. So,
can I scar something? I need to scar something.
Yeah, and you need to scar some card so that you remember forever that we need to have this conversation again. But I'm going to pass it to Tyler. We're going to go through our last questions. Tyler's going to rock out his Movember mustache while he asks this, and then Sen will follow up with Steph. And then, sadly, we're going to have to call it a night because the time has disappeared. So, Tyler, you got a question for Gil?
I do, Gil. What advice would you give to new designers going to BGG.con for the first time?
It depends on what they're trying to do.
Okay, that's great. Thanks. No, just kidding. Go ahead.
So I'd say if they want to pitch their game, research your publishers and make sure that you've got a good match of a publisher to the game you're trying to pitch. Make sure that you're not trying to pitch, for example, like if you're, I'm just going to make something up. Let's say you're pitching. First off, if you're approaching Stronghold, know that Stronghold has a really huge queue, and it's got to be something like Steven's looking for 3 things, and you have to know what the 3 things are. All I remember the 3 things is one of them is fantastic. So there you go.
That is one of them.
Welcome to Steven's world. But if you're looking to get feedback on your prototype, make sure that you're ready for feedback. I always make sure people know that, I don't like the terms good playtest and bad playtest because they don't always mean the things that they think they mean. A playtest where the game breaks and you spend an hour taking it apart and saying why it wasn't any fun, that's a good playtest. That's a really good playtest because you generally find out what went wrong, and that tends to be a really pivotal moment in the game's history. It's not a pleasant playtest, but it's a good playtest. A bad playtest is one where everybody just says, it was okay, I liked it. That's a bad playtest because you didn't get much of a reaction. So have your goal, know what you want, and you can have multiple goals, but know what your goals are, and know how to go in. And if your goal is just to have fun, then there's plenty of that at BGG.con as well. Oh, and most importantly, get a lot of sleep and take showers.
And eat real food.
Yes, eat real food. Don't just insist on like pretzels and chocolate.
Oh God,
because that's a good way to get sick. Have your meals, have your sleep. The con will be waiting for you when you wake up. You can't do everything. Don't try to do everything. If you pick one thing, don't be so doe-eyed that I want to do the other thing. No, be in the thing, be in the place you are, and have a great time with it.
I'm not sure what Steph is doing.
It's funny and sad at the same time that so often we have to remind people to shower at conventions. It's gross and weird.
Yeah, you can do everything. You can do it. Don't listen to Gil.
You can't do everything.
I did everything.
Look at her hair turn blue. Look at her.
Stephanie didn't do everything.
I did do everything. I did do everything.
She was under the illusion.
Name one thing I didn't do.
You didn't answer my tweet. Oh, sorry.
You didn't play my games.
Ponzi scheme.
I played other games. I brought home Ponzi scheme. I am the Ponzi scheme. I was the Ponzi scheme.
All right, Steph. Last question to you. So I'm going to twist this up a little bit as we were talking about legacy games. If you were to have the ear of a designer and said, "Hey, make me a game with legacy mechanics," what would you want to see a legacy game to either be about, or what kind of legacy type mechanics would you want to see in a game?
I want evolution and legacy. I want like species to evolve, and I want to see like the different types of species and how they would adapt to their environment. Like if someone makes a decision that they build a dam and this lake runs dry, that fish like grow legs and now they don't have gills, they can breathe oxygen throughout the air and stuff like that. I want the evolution of species. Specifically, I want to be a dragon. That would be really cool.
There, you heard it right there, folks.
Okay.
I want to be a
Make
legacy
Dragon the origin story.
I want to be a legacy dragon. No, I like the idea of like not just humanity, but the environment evolving, because I feel like a lot of legacy games are like empires, like civilization. I want to see more than that. I want to see the environment evolve. I want to see the world change, like drastic effects. So
Metamorphosis.
I want the timeline to be huge. I mean, and Rob did that with Origins. Like he's got Bronze Age, Stone Age, and beyond. But like I want like worlds, planets, like terraforming. Like I want huge change.
You want an RPG game.
You want a video game.
Yeah.
No, it's a board game.
It's a board game.
Daryl.
Sorry.
It's gonna happen.
Make it for me.
Lots
Make
of
this
stickers. Lots of
this-
stickers.
Like this is so much scarring. So much scarring.
So much scarring, so much stickers.
All right, let's wrap up.
All right, well, thank you. I want to say thank you both to Stephanie and Gil. A couple of our favorites, as they know.
Yes.
We do love them very much and really take any excuse we can to have them on the show. Thank you for sharing some stories from BGG.con and giving us a glimpse into that and pointing us to some wonderful games that we need to check out and some designers we need to check out and support. I want to say thanks to my fellow hosts, Sen and Tyler. Thank you for all you do. Keep making great games out there, people, and we look forward to trying your games out soon. Good night, everyone.
Night-night.
Yay!